Trip with perfect game. Here's Darren Sutton.
So let's make a journey, and the conversation is going to be similar because we're talking baseball. We're talking life and academics and development. We're talking from Hawaii all the way to Heidelberg, Ontario, which is about an hour and a half outside of Toronto. We're talking with a talented Calvin Ziegler who joins us, one of the elite right-handed pitchers overall in all of North America, the number one overall player in Ontario, and Calvin spends time with us now. Calvin, in a world in which you don't start school till November 13th, what does life look like for you? You know, since the summer quieted down, you got a chance to go play in Fort Myers, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, a good opportunity. But what does your day-to-day look like? You know, understanding we're in a pandemic and you're trying to, stay baseball sharp as well.
So right now I'm not currently throwing. I just shut down after Jupiter, like you said. But, I'll wake up at 7, get ready to go to work we'll leave here at my house about 7:45, get to the shop at 8, and then figure out what we have to do for the day, go get that done. And once I get that done, I'll come back home, I'll quickly change, and then I'll start my workout, which is usually an hour and a half, depending on what I'm doing that day. And then really after that, it's just do the same thing again, really just eat. And then sometimes, I'll hop on some video games with my buddies and then pretty much go from there. So there's nothing really interesting going on quite yet, but everything starts up a little bit in about 2 weeks.
So don't sell yourself short. I'm super interested. I want to peel back many parts of that answer alone right there, Calvin. First of all, it's your father, JJ. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you go to work with him. First of all, tell us specifically the line of work it is, the type of construction it is. I believe you shared that. Share specifically what the day-to-day looks like, what you guys do together, and tell me a little bit about when you get out on site, what you're doing for your job.
So my dad's company does a little bit of everything. For example, yesterday and the day before that, we were doing some coatings on some balconies. So we laid down the top coat or the bottom coat on Tuesday. And then yesterday we were back there again throwing sand and a top coat on it. So we did about 25 balconies yesterday, which obviously took the whole day.
Yeah.
And then today we just cleaned out a unit. So we pretty much just picked up all the trash that the person left behind, took it to the dump, and then took the metal scraps to the scrapyard.
Good old-fashioned hard work, Calvin. I mean, that never hurt anybody. And then the other part I wanted to peel back from your answer is you said, come home, work out. You walk me through, an outstanding pitcher who's seen a big jump in velocity. Walk me through what your evening workout looks like. Give me some specifics.
So I'll usually start up with obviously my warm-up. So I'll bike for 5-10 minutes. I'll get on my rowing machine for 5 minutes, and I'll do my stretching, which usually will take up that whole part right there. It'll take about half an hour. And then I'll start getting into my lift. Depending on what I'll do that day, it'll kind of vary based on my program. But today I'll probably do squats, so we'll run through that. So I'll probably start off obviously light just with the bar to get it going. And then I'll slowly increase the weight until I get to my working weight, which today, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll have to look at that and see what set it is, how many sets it is. Let's say if it's a strength building day, it'll probably be like a 3x2, really depending on how I'm feeling that day. It could be a 4x2, 3x2. It'll really depend. And then, I'll work up to my working weight, which is usually in the low 300s, mid 300s pounds. And then we'll obviously go from there. Then afterwards, I'll do my recovery, which is, again, on the bike, and then I'll go hop in my hot tub. And then after that, I'll just have a cold shower, and then I'll eat after that, and then I'm pretty much done the workout for the night.
And you got to be exhausted. I mean, that's, you want to talk about a good night's sleep after working all day, really true hard work, and then working out. You've got to be exhausted.
Yeah, in the beginning it sucked. But yeah, it was pretty tiring. But once you get into it, it's kind of just a routine. You get used to it. So it's not that bad. But some days when I really push it and I'll just do more cardio based and endurance based, those are the days that, you definitely fall asleep a little earlier.
Yeah, I can understand that. He lives in Heidelberg, Ontario. That's outside of Toronto by about an hour and a half. He's at St. Mary's High School. His travel team, one of them for sure, the Great Lake Canadians, but he joined the Ohio Warhawks and traveled all the way to Fort Myers, Florida, the old event that was in Jupiter in Fort Myers, Florida, the World Wood Bat Association World Championship. You worked 3 really effective innings. You struck out 4, lived between 93 to 95. I gave all the basics of the event. Why don't you tell me about the experience from your eyes?
It was probably the best event I've been to. Not even just the fact that, like, the scouts there's just so many more than you're used to, but just the fact, like, the group of guys I was with, like Ron Slush, the head coach, obviously great guy, really just introduced us to the family, and, like, everybody there, everybody on the team was just great. Atmosphere there was, like, you'll never see it anywhere else. It was just something different. Like, what they call a Warhawks family, I didn't know what it really was all about until I got there, and then it's hard to explain just the experience and, like, what it meant to me, really.
Yeah, I could see that. I think I was there when you guys piled out of a bus one day, or a van one day, and I was getting ready to do something with a couple of your guys, including young catcher Zion Rose, do a video piece. So, yeah, I can see where it's a family. I know they've shared a lot about how much you guys ate. I've seen some of the tweets about that. Hey, man, if you're working hard and playing good, and they're feeding you well, that's a good experience. I watched, so I didn't see you pitch in person. I was at every day of that event, but I just grabbed a few minutes today when I knew we were going to have a conversation and watch that single camera feed from behind home plate. And I saw a pitcher that looks like, and I pitched in the minor leagues myself a little bit, but I saw a pitcher that looks like he gets so far out over that left knee with his reach that the extension, it almost looks like you're slapping the catcher's mitt as you release the baseball. You know what I'm describing, obviously. Tell me some of the keys to your mechanics and why I saw what I saw.
Honestly, the whole reach and extension, that kind of just comes naturally. My main focus is actually working with my elbows and my back knee. That's all I really focus on when I'm actually pitching. So for me, it's timing of the elbow and getting my elbows back before I'm about to throw. So once I lift my knee up to deliver the pitch, obviously a lot of people point with the glove. I'm kind of more glove in and point with the elbow. And then I'll pull my elbows back, and then my elbows turn at the same time with my upper chest. And that's where I find I get most of my velocity is through my lower and upper chest, because that's really what turns me and creates the velocity. But just before that, I'll load on my back knee and make sure that all my weight is there before I actually start moving forward down the mound. And then I guess I push off really well, and then, yeah, like you said, I get really far over my front knee. So,
yeah, that was just my simple-minded, camera phone behind home plate view, but I love your description. I love understanding why you do what you do and how you generate it. I'm going to throw a couple of sports at you that you played and played well, and heck, maybe you still play. You can fill me in that you shared with me. The first one is rugby. Your experience playing rugby, and you've played well, obviously, as the most valuable player, during a time that you've played. But tell me a little bit about the sport, what you like about it, and even what maybe affects you in baseball.
So rugby, whenever you hear that, everybody thinks it's just a super physical, injury-prone game. It's actually a gentleman's sport more than football actually is. There's a lot of rules against hitting, a lot of different rules that probably most people wouldn't understand. But you definitely have to be really athletic because you're on the field the whole time. And you don't only just play offense, you play both defense as well. So there's a lot of conditioning into it, and it's a really strategy-based game. Because in football, if you have the ball, your team can obviously block for you, but in rugby, your team can't. So passing the ball is obviously huge. So you really got to learn your teammates and what they do well. So it's a really good team sport. So I really enjoyed it. It helps me with baseball, obviously, because of the fact that you have to know your team, the team game. And it's honestly one of the best, most fun sports I've played. But it's definitely weird whenever somebody asks me, what it's actually, what's different about rugby. And it's more actually just a gentleman's sport rather than all that physical aggression you really hear.
Understand, Calvin. Do you play anymore?
No, I stopped playing once I once actually Team Canada reached out, because I didn't want to risk any injuries in that sport, even though I said it's not really an injury-prone sport.
Tell me about being a part of the Canadian national team. I know you've had your ups and downs. You've shared some of that with me, but the overall experience about representing your country, being, at the highest of levels and one of the best players in your country.
It's definitely an honor. Like, to play for your country is one thing, like, and then to be recognized by it as well is like just something great. And honestly, that team is probably the only reason I'm on this phone call with you right now, because they got me in front of my first ever Major League scouts, got me really, like, scouts interested in me, and then it kind of all went down from, went uphill from there. So there's nothing I can really say. It's just like, thank you to Team Canada for getting me really into this position.
Wow, humble and a great attitude to have. This is Calvin Ziegler. He's the number one player in Ontario. He's one of the top pitchers in the United States and Canada combined in all of North America. So excited to talk with him. You can hear the thankfulness he has to Team Canada, though you've had your moments there where, they're like any other challenging team with elite players. You've had your moments of not making the cut. Explain that to me and explain, how you grew from that.
That was actually when I was in Australia. We were just having a series against the Australian national team. It was kind of the final cut to go to the World Juniors. And I didn't perform my best, obviously, so I was sent home. But, I mean, there's nothing I can really complain about. They had to bring the best team over, and they did pretty good over there as well. So it definitely was more of a humbling moment rather than anything else, and just really made me work harder, so that hopefully next time in that position I'll make the cut.
I figured that would be your answer. Most elite players like you, just find a way to make yourself better and to find a way to challenge yourself more. With that in mind, and that vein in mind, Calvin, what has been the positive of 2020 in a year in which it's been hard? Your country has been respected for handling it so very well with regard to safety and lower numbers, but yet you've had to give up a lot. So with that in mind, what has still been the positive part of coronavirus 2020, how it's affected you?
So with the coronavirus, my team, my travel ball team, the Great Lakes Canadians, they put together a really good way of limiting it. So, like, my coaches, Adam Stern, Chris Robinson, John Fitzsimmons is my pitching coach. They would be out at the field for 6 hours a day working with all the guys in just limited numbers so that we could obviously still work out with the team. So, like, it was a huge help from them for sure. But with this whole pandemic, it really did hurt a little bit, because when I would go down to the States for some tournaments, when I would come back, I would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Meaning, like, I couldn't leave my house for 2 weeks. And, like, they're very strict about that, so it hurt a little bit, but in the long run, it's obviously for everybody's safety, so you can't really fight against it.
Yeah, and from what you've shared, you've been creative with your workouts. We've seen the work on the field, how you have expanded as a pitcher, how you have grown. I went to a little school in Montgomery, Alabama. Few people know that Auburn has a second campus. I went to that second campus and actually signed a professional contract out of Auburn Montgomery. You're an Auburn commit. I came from California to Alabama. You're going to go from Canada to Alabama. Explain what drew you to Butch Thompson and Auburn University.
It was really, they had more of a regard for me. They really were interested in me. I really appreciated that. And then I hopped on a call individually first with Carl Nautemaker and then Butch Thompson and Tim Hudson, the pitching coach. And then once I was like, yeah, I really like the school, I like everything they have to offer, I hopped on a call with all of them just to get everybody talking together. And like, it was amazing, just what they had to offer, like their program, obviously the conference they're in, the SEC, which is like the best conference you can go to. And like, it just drew, like, my attention was drawn. Like, I pretty much had my mind already locked into what I was going to do. And then, yeah, they had a discussion with my parents about scholarship, and then my parents said that they could afford it, and I was like, well, I already know what my decision is.
Outstanding, Calvin. Congratulations on all you've accomplished, and obviously fighting through a challenging year physically. I'll always respect the class of 2021. No offense to any other class, but as someone who covers amateur baseball, I'll always respect you guys because you lost your summer, at least part of it. You had to go through unique things. Heck, you may not get a senior season. You didn't get a junior season. So, my friend, you've made the most of it, Calvin. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, the pride of Canada, the class of 21 out of Heidelberg, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. His name is Calvin Ziegler. He's been up to 95 miles an hour, excited about his future.
It's difficult to be a